Hello, this is Paul Chek. Welcome back to my video blogs. Today I thought I would talk about the importance of living together and the common ground of humanity. I think most of you know that we're at a very interesting point in the evolution of the human species, and that the world is getting more and more crowded and resources are getting more and more limited, largely because we are not using our resources in the most efficient and intelligent ways. And there's also big challenges because the more well-financed, if you will, countries or peoples at large are consuming far more than their share if we look at the world as one community, which I think it's important for us to consider doing now. There is something along the lines of 1 billion people that don't have access to food and water and can't even come close to living any semblance of the kind of life that we do. In fact, I watched one documentary that said something like 80% of people in the world don't even have a closet and a bedroom that they can call their own, which is a very high statistic, and it seems disproportionate, but most of us watching this are not in the parts of the world where people are living that way, so it's easy to have this out of sight, out of mind kind of reality. But when you start getting on the internet and looking at documentaries dealing with these issues, I can only tell you that my own experience is that it hurts my heart and makes me sad and motivates me to want to do my best to contribute. So, though I think that we're facing a lot of challenges, I do also feel that there's a tremendous opportunity for all of us to grow, to become more loving, more wise, more empathetic, more compassionate, more religious, more faithful, more beautiful, and look more deeply into truth if you want to look at it from a philosophical perspective. So today what I've done is I've just created a diagram of the ways I think that we can all look at the world, some of the things that I think are important in the world. And what my suggestion as I go through here is that each one of us is more inclined or more capable in certain ways than other people are. Some may have an abundance of financial wealth and can use that money as a form of power to influence positive change. But others may not have a lot of money, but they may have a lot of wisdom to share or a lot of love to share. So as I go through, I'm not indicating that we all need to, add a lot more stress to our lives to do things that are unnatural, but I'm here to share that by being aware of the ways that we can support the world and the people of the world and nature itself, then we can choose in our own way to participate in whatever way feels natural and honest to us. Because if you make it painful, then usually it is an act that comes with some kind of resent or regret and just leads to more problems of a different kind. So it's a real challenging issue for all of us to figure out how do we make a change when there's so many big problems at once. It can be crippling or even paralyzing. But I just can share in my life that each day when I have an opportunity to make a choice, I just ask myself, what would love do now? If I was really operating out of love, what would I do now? And remember, first we must apply that to ourselves. What would love do first for me? Because if I can't love myself and I can only give pseudo-love to someone else, then we can operate from the level of we. So if we can make positive changes within our own family, for example, some of those changes will impact everybody on the planet. And then what could I do at the level of loving all? And so first we go I, we, then all. So my diagram here shows what would be an expression of the world, within which you have the Tai Chi symbol, which represents the two primary forces that create the universe and all in it, which is the masculine and the feminine. In Taoist philosophy, that's yang, and this is yin, the feminine is yin. Now, some words that are important here is that the feminine energy is the energy of containment. For example, the mother wants to hold the family together, but the father wants to liberate the children to go out into the world and become individuals, to become adults, and to have a sense of rationality, a sense of justice, and to have an education to do the things that they need to do in order to fulfill themselves and contribute to the world. So whenever we're looking at any of the issues we're about to discuss, there's always going to be an issue at the personal level, the we level, family, tribe, and then the all level of do we contain or do we liberate, which means to utilize or share. The first thing that we can all look at is love. Love is, I define love as the flow of energy and information to self or other through empathic and compassionate connection. So the flow of energy and information, first you got to love yourself. To have empathy and compassion for yourself is to love yourself, and you got to connect to yourself to do that. Or to flow energy and information to other through empathic, I feel you, compassionate, I understand you, and to connect. So the first thing we can do to support the world is first make sure we're loving ourselves enough that we have the resources to really legitimately contribute to somebody else's life. And if the first thing we ever did in our life was learn to love and care for ourselves better, then we would be a living example for the world everywhere we go. So you can make a beautiful contribution by learning to love and care for yourself enough that you naturally have an interest, a desire to care for others in the world, and that would be a big step toward helping the world. When we love ourselves enough, we contain enough love in us to liberate it and share it. But if we don't love ourselves enough, then the thought of liberating our love outward to others creates stress inside, and therefore we have a stress reaction, which leads to stress behavior. Family is the next important thing. It's very, very important to realize that there are many families all over the world that are really challenged to meet their basic survival needs. So whenever we're thinking about family, one of the things that we can operate with is, what could I share with any family that would be supportive of them? So things like the goodwill, or just giving things away to families that you know have less than you. And oftentimes in the Western culture, we throw away piles and piles of stuff that would be very useful to many families. So a simple step that you can do is think of all the books, all the food, all the toys, all the clothing, and the many, many things that typically end up in garbage dumps, making a mess of the place, when a lot of these things could be shared with other families. And you can share education with families, you can share many of these things with families. And since the family is the basic unit in which our consciousness grows and develops, where we get educated, where we learn to love, and where we feel safe, anytime you can help a family of any type that needs help, then you're also increasing the likelihood that the children or the members of that family are going to be more safe and secure, more capable of loving and adding something beautiful to the world, which you may never see, but just the smallest little amounts of support can really add up to something. Water, we're in a water situation in many places in the world. Most people know California has quite a significant water shortage. Water is something that's causing a lot of problems because so many people, for example, are drinking it out of plastic bottles. I recently watched a documentary that was very good on water. I don't remember the name of it, but it was showing, for example, the amount of plastic water bottles that is polluting the planet is unbelievably large, and it's causing all sorts of problems in the ocean and the environment. But one of the things that they showed in the documentary that I thought was quite interesting is that it takes, on average, 3 times as much water to make a plastic bottle as it holds. So if you drink, for example, 1 bottle of water that you got in an airport, it actually took 3 times that much water just to make the plastic bottle. So really, when you drink, say, a quart of water, you've actually produced the consumption of a gallon of water by participating in the purchase of the plastic bottle, which is really a shocking statistic. So whenever it comes to water, one of the things that I suggest is, if you look at the quality of most of the waters out there on the market, most of them aren't any better than any of the other ones. If you want to spend the money for a high-end water like Fiji or Evian, then you're going to go a cut above, but you're going to pay for it. You're going to buy a plastic bottle. And I know there's a time and a place for that. When I travel through airports and they make you pour all your water out to go in, I buy the best water that I can get, and it's pretty hard to get around that. But I did notice recently in the San Diego airport, they now have a water station with a high quality filter, and it shows you how many bottles of plastic that you've saved by using that. So that's a positive change. Now there's an example of something that if somebody wanted to contribute to the world, they could come up with the support by creating water stations with filters. That would be a great contribution, or corporations could donate that out of the goodness of their pocketbooks. So we want to be conscious that we do have water shortages. Only 1% of the water on the planet is actually drinkable, and that big industry is ruining a lot of the water, such as fracking and drilling and commercial farming. These are all things that are part of this overall problem. Carrying a water bottle with you, now you can get many water bottle systems at camping stores like Adventure 16 and places like that that have quite high quality filters in them. So you can actually fill up a water bottle that you carry with you in any public water source, tap, whatever, and get probably as good or better water as you've been buying in plastic bottles. And they've also done a lot of research showing that the water in plastic bottles is actually less safe than tap water in general, because many people have gotten bacterial infections from bottled water and parasite infections and all sorts of things. Food, whenever we are dealing with food, there's a tremendous amount of waste, and there's a lot of people that don't get to eat 3 meals a day. And again, try to be conscious of eating what you need, but not wasting food. Using a composting system if you can, or encouraging a composting plan in your building or where your area is a great idea. Learning how to do basic composting from a book at acresusa.com. You can find books on composting, PricePottinger.org, WestonAPrice.org. There's all sorts of books. And if you're just growing plants around your house or even a little vegetable bed, then composting makes you feel much better, because you know you're not just wasting food. Remember, all that food came out of the earth, and if it doesn't return back to the earth, then the earth just becomes more and more depleted, just like as if you didn't get enough sleep, you'd eventually just deplete yourself. So we have to return back to the earth. and avoid eating garbage, of course, because every time you eat packaged garbage foods, you end up ultimately supporting the chemical industry and eat poor nutrition and plastic packaging, and the whole list goes on. Safety and shelter. We have a huge percentage of the world population that doesn't even have a sense of safety, nor do they have shelter. So whenever we don't have safety, we go into fear mode, and when people are in fear mode, they're much more volatile, and that leads to, unfortunately, to violence. And really, a lot of the times, the violence is between the people that have resources and those that don't have resources, such as when they come in and try to drill oil or frack or take land from Native American Indians. If you look at the book This Changes Everything by Naomi Wolf, you'll see there's a lot of this going on in the world. So what can we do with regard to safety and shelter? Well, you can donate. You can donate money to good causes. You can donate help. You can go, if you want, on vacation. There's all sorts of missions and opportunities to go help build shelters and create safety for people. Any way that you can support the concept of safety and shelter that works for you is a viable contribution. Education. We have a tremendous problem with education. Worldwide, we have smart people that are so smart they forgot everything that's really important, like this, and how to eat well and sleep properly and move their bodies. And then we have people that don't get enough education. And then we've got people that are highly educated but were never taught how to think. They were only taught what to think, which is part of a corporate agenda. So anytime that you can share education that helps get people the kind of awareness they need to meet their needs effectively and be more friendly to the earth, that's a great contribution. Giving money to people without educating them is a dangerous thing, because if you, for example, give a bunch of poor people $1 million, all you got to do is study the lotto. People that 1 year after the lotto, 98% of them were not only broke, but wish they'd never won the money because it caused so much stress in their families. So education is a great thing to share to the degree that you feel that you have authentically got more harmony and balance in your life through the use of that education than the people around you. Culture is very important. Cultures are all ways to experience life differently. Each culture has its own unique experience of the earth, its own unique experience of religion, its own unique experience of business, its own, or commerce, its own unique experience of sexuality, creativity, and many things. Food, if I didn't already say that, dance, art. There's a lot we can do by learning from each other's cultures. I must say that in my life experience, traveling all over the world as a teacher, that I think, sadly, that North Americans, the United States and Canada, and not so much England, but for sure the United States and Canada, is about the most culturally inept. And they have a tendency to think that the whole world should succumb to them, and are the least willing to bend their views in order to be honest or be loving or be receptive of other cultural viewpoints. So anytime we can learn from other cultures and look at the way they're doing things, we can get inspired, because it gives us a different viewpoint, a different vantage point, another way of experiencing things, and it also allows us to understand other people. Our tendency is to think everybody should do things the way we should do it. A great example of that is if you look at the book Sex at Dawn. They go into great detail in the different cultural views of sex and intimate relationships. And I think it's very, very eye-opening when you look at these things and realize that there is a lot of other different belief systems out there. And interestingly, some of them work a lot better statistically under the eye of research than what we're doing. Then you have religion and faith. religion is very related to culture. Religion is in all of us. Archaeological evidence shows that as long as humans have been on the planet, there has been religion and religious symbolism and the search for love and deeper meaning. And faith is very, very important, because faith is something that helps you through challenges and helps you to better navigate or deal with the unknown mysteries. For example, death and what happens after death. But you know, there's a saying, faith begins where knowledge ends. And when we don't have the knowledge or the means to handle a challenge in our life, then we can get a lot of support from faith. And if you look at all the things going on in the world right now, well, it's obvious knowledge alone isn't going to handle it, because there's a lot of wise people that have not been able to solve these problems. So faith is a very, very important thing, but we need to have faith in living together, working together, loving together, growing together, and realizing the oneness of humanity, earth, and nature together. So the point that I want to share here is that I think that studying world religion, and Houston Smith is the person who's probably contributed more than anybody on world religion and has a great book on the religious faiths of the world, and has done many documentaries. You could just type Houston Smith into Amazon Video or Netflix and learn all sorts of amazing things. But in my life, learning about other religion has been one of the most enculturating or nourishing things, because it really helped me understand how this desire for connection to God or to consciousness or that which is the creator emerges in different peoples, and it adds a lot of richness and depth to our own understanding of who we are, because we're all part of the earth, we're all part of the universe. So we're all able to, just like if you went to a conference on advanced mathematics and you had mathematicians from all over the world, you'd be very interested in their different opinions. Well, when we go to a conference on world religion, we get to see and understand and perceive how different people see and experience life, love, and whatever you might call the divine. And I have personally found my own religious or spiritual practices massively enriched by the study of world culture and world religion and world shamanic practices and things like that. The way to share your fruits of that is not to impose them upon people and tell them what they're doing wrong, but to exemplify what it looks like to live that way by being empathetic, compassionate, understanding, or tolerant, and giving people space to do what works in their culture. Money, you know, there's an old saying, money makes the world go round. Money is energy. Money is the power to make change. Money is the power to support yourself and to support others. So if you don't have the desire or willingness to do anything other than direct your money into places where it can be helpful, then it just takes time to make sure that your money is going into something legitimate. A good example of this is I go travel all over the world and I see people from hospitals out ringing the bell asking for money for cancer research. Most of this cancer research is being done by drug companies and biotech labs. So it's kind of, you know, for me, it's just like the most twisted, crooked, I don't even want to get going on it, but the point I'm making is be very conscious of where your money's going, because the number of scams out there that are just putting money in the hands of people that already have money is significant. So if you're going to provide money, make sure that the outcome of adding that much energy into any given system or path of commerce is going to be something that makes you feel good at the end of the day. Creativity and play is something that we're lacking. Our culture, particularly in the West, is so intellectually dominant and so work-oriented and so mathematically and logically oriented that we've lost, through our excessive rationality, we've disconnected from the deep value of that which Arthur Young calls unrational. Normally I would use rational relative to irrational, so the masculine would be rational, the feminine would be irrational, but Arthur M. Young says a better word is unrational, because irrational has the connotation that you're just having a temper tantrum or a fit or doing something stupid. But unrational would relate to something that is playful, something that has no outcome. And many children are suffering greatly all over the world, and many of my students have a very, very hard time doing a lot of the exercises, especially when art or music or dance is involved, because they're so trapped in what other people think and what is rational and what they need to get done to make more money, that they forget how to be creative and how to play. And that's a product of being taught what to think instead of how to think. But the reality of it is that when you're playing, your creativity is more accessible, your intuition becomes more accessible, and you learn to express yourself as a form of art, play, and self-love, and you remove the barrier of judgment, of grading, of rank, how good am I, where am I compared to everybody else, and it becomes just a gift of expression of yourself. So if we spend more time being creative together, we can solve these problems, and if we are more playful together, then we're going to be less likely to be warring with each other, because the opposite of war would be play. If you could say the opposite of war is love, but that gets tricky. When you're warring, you're not playing. So if kids are playing together, they're getting along and having fun. But if they're fighting together, then they're not getting along and they're not having fun. We're doing a lot of fighting together in the world, but we could play more and be creative more, such as joint art projects between cultures, joint musical projects between cultures, joint cooking projects or joint farming projects. How do we share this together? Those are things that could be playful. And then freedom is something that we all need, and freedom is a big issue in the world because we have mostly Western money and ideals going in and cutting down the rainforest, kicking the natives off their land, and stealing resources, which takes away freedom for people even to meet their most basic needs. And there's umpteen documentaries showing how the oil companies do this all the time, and even large corporations like Kentucky Fried Chicken, McDonald's, and their massive agro farms and all the things that they get into. It's pretty shocking. So the thing is that anytime we can create more freedom for ourselves, which requires that we be willing to be creative and play, and that allows us to get into a space where we can be centered enough to share our love out of authentic sharing, as opposed to some compressed feeling of what I should do or have to do. And freedom is really what lets your spirit come out, lets you get out from the entanglement of the humdrum of making money and doing all these things. But freedom is something that you have to be willing to give yourself, even if it's just a few minutes a day. It's an act of self-love. But when you do feel free because you realize you're the one making the choices, then you feel, in my experience, more willing to participate in life as opposed to just surviving it. But paradoxically, freedom requires laws. If there were no laws, then we would never be able to relax, because freedom would be more, we'd go back to the days of pirates, where everyone just rips off what they want, rapes and pillages and kills. So the paradox is that freedom requires laws. So we have to look carefully at, are our laws creating freedom, Are our laws fair to other people? Are they fair to other cultures? And are they even fair to us? And not that I could even begin to go into that, but when you look at a lot of the laws being passed on things like vaccinating children, education, controlling substances, hiding what the ingredients of food, GMOs, we have a lot of laws that are put off like we're going to have freedom, you're going to have more to eat, but ultimately they reduce freedom and increase the likelihood of illness and disease. So anybody, for example, who is into protecting people by supporting rallies or signing petitions to make sure that laws are safe so we have more freedom, or by supporting anybody in all of these things, you're ultimately supporting them to have more freedom. Finally, we've got to remember the earth is our home and our mother. And we are now the most destructive, most parasitic organism ever to inhabit the planet, and we are doing more damage to this planet than we can really calculate. But when you look at the calculations on it, it's shocking. Edward O. Wilson wrote a book, I believe it was called The Future of Life, and he's a famous naturalist who's gotten over 100 awards for his scientific achievements, and he said that we've killed more species, if I remember right, in the last 40 years than all human beings prior to the last 40 years. So the rate of extinction, and with poisoning and pushing animals out of their territory, a good example is I just found out that the people that own the orchard right next to me are hiring hunters to kill the deer because the deer are eating from their fruit trees, which is sad because they spray the trees over there with chemicals, and now the deer don't even have a place to live. And I love seeing the deer, but to protect a few fruit trees, we got to shoot a bunch of deer. So when we lose contact of the web of life, or the understanding of the web of life, that everything's supporting everything else. For example, you can look at the documentaries, there's documentaries on the wolves and how the wolves have changed entire territories and even affected vegetation. You see just one creature, the wolf, had an impact on everything from the soil to the people. So it's time for us all to become more loving to the earth, more conscious of what the earth represents to us. And all you got to do is ask yourself, what happens when the soil's poisoned and there's no place to grow food anymore? Do we want to live on synthesized fantasy foods from biotech organizations? What are we going to do when we run out of water? We already have 1 billion people who can't get to water. What are we going to do if we keep killing off the bees and the trees? Rudolf Steiner said there's 2 things human life depends upon: bees and trees, and if you bring either of them to a critically low level, then life on Earth will, life for human beings will cease to exist until the Earth can regenerate itself. If you look at the news of all the bees being killed in mass numbers, largely from the use of pesticides and corporate stupidity, we've got some problems. Now, this is a long topic, but what can you do to be more friendly to the earth? Well, anytime you're doing any of these things, you're being more friendly to the earth. And anytime you're spending time connecting to the earth, to the trees, to the flowers, to the soil, to the river, to the sky, pay attention to the fact that you breathe 25,900 times a day, all of which happens only because the Earth's atmosphere allows us to do that. As I said, these are deep things, but any little bit that you can make out of the love of your heart, love for yourself, love for life, love for nature, and love for others, if each of us just made a little contribution, even once a week. In California, for example, we have a saying: if it's yellow, let it mellow. If it's brown, flush it down. Well, when you think that average toilet flushes between 1 and 5 gallons of water every flush, if you could get everybody in the world that has a toilet to just not flush the toilet till after they've peed in it 2 or 3 times, we would save potentially billions of gallons of water almost on a daily basis. So my key point in closing is we don't have to make this extraneous. We don't have to make it a real burden. But the first thing you got to do is be aware and be conscious, and then just choose whichever way you can contribute today. I'm going to let that sit. I'm not going to flush that down. I'm not going to throw this toy away. I'm going to give it to the Goodwill or to an underprivileged family. I'm going to give some money to a group that I know is doing good work, like planting trees, for example, or providing medicine or shelter for third world underprivileged children. Any one little bit each day, if we all do it together, we can really do a lot to support each other and the planet, so that the future of life for the children on this planet right now is a lot less stressful than it will be if we don't start participating in these things. Some resources for you. The Last 4 Doctors You'll Ever Need, my multimedia ebook, gives you great information on how to breathe properly, how to move your body properly, how to use work-in exercises, and how to organize your life according to what is your dream and what are the core values that will support me in living fully. My book, How to Eat, Move, and Be Healthy, is unique in that it has a series of questionnaires to help you identify which systems are under stress, shows you how to lower your overall stress scores, and teaches you what type and intensity of exercise program is ideal for someone at your level of stress. My audio workbook program, You Are What You Eat, teaches you everything you need to know about food, food packaging, food chemicals, everything that would help you better understand food, how do you contain food, store food, all the things that you need to know about food that I couldn't put in my book, How to Eat, Move, and Be Healthy, because it would have made it significantly too long. HLC1, Holistic Lifestyle Coach Level 1, which is now available online, or you can come live, takes the information from these resources, puts it into a very easy to follow online or live program, teaches you all that stuff taught by a master and more, so that you get deeper, but not so deep that your head's spinning. So that course is really all about how do you love and take care of yourself in ways that are friendly for the planet and for the world, and are fantastic for people to emulate when they see you doing them. So that's just a little overview of how we could live together and explore the common ground of humanity. The most common ground of humanity is the earth. I hope you enjoy this, and I hope you enjoy going out into the world and just doing something for yourself and something for whoever you can give it to, honestly. One of the things I learned studying Houston Smith, he was asked, Houston, what have you learned from your life experience that you would like to share? And he went into a pause and he said, be a little kinder. Just be a little kinder. He said, when I look back on my life, I can see a lot of places where if I was just a little kinder, it would have been better for everybody. And that hit me like an arrow. So my request for all of us is, if all you get out of this is to just go out and be a little kinder to yourself, to others, and to the planet, we'll be moving in the right direction. Thanks for joining me today. I look forward to seeing you next time.